We know that 70% of Earth's structure is made by water, and we know that the moon is tied to the gravitational field or gravitational force of Earth, and there is always a push-pull relation between the moon as the Earth. As we mentioned previously, the Earth have a magnetic field. As the Earth bigger mass, it is exerting more pulling gravitational force on the moon than the force that the moon is applying on Earth. But as the research is stating up until today, it is saying that even though the moon mass is smaller than Earth, but still the moon is exerting some gravitational force on Earth, and there is some phenomena happening on the Earth's surface that are considered caused by the moon. We know that Earth is rolling around itself on an angle of 23.5 degrees from the vertical axis, and as Earth is rolling on a certain speed around itself, the moon is rolling around the Earth in a certain orbit, and this orbit is getting closer to Earth and far from it depending on many factors. Now, what we observe on Earth, the phenomenon is in the oceans. You can observe that there is water tides going to the surface at a certain distance and decreased back in certain days and certain times. This phenomenon is happening slowly. It will take 8 to 12 hours of span time, but you can observe it day to day as you are close to the beach. Now, the scientists today are explaining that by the moon pulling the Earth with its gravitational field, and that would cause the water to be pulled from the side of the moon. So the water from the side of the moon at that day will be pulled towards the land on Earth because it's being pulled towards the moon from that side of the moon, while it will be retracted from the other side of Earth away from the side of the moon. Same thing happened all year long. So explanations are saying the water tides or the Earth tides are being caused by the moon. Couple of scientists who are against this theory, but that's the explanation what we have in hand today for the Earth tides until somebody come in and give a satisfying explanation on what's going on. And you know, this is related to the explanation of gravity we mentioned before. There is no solid explanation or mathematical expression for gravity. What we have today is development from the ideas of Newton about gravity and the ideas of Einstein about relativity and the relative motion between objects and the gravitational field. Just work in this course with what we've been approved with the scientific community on. Earth tides are caused by the pulling of the gravitational field of the moon that is being exerted on Earth. The factors that affect the tides are the shape of the coastline. You know, when you are on the coast of water, the shape of the coastline is important. The topography of the ocean floor near the coastline, and the friction between Earth and the ocean water, and the Earth's position in its orbit around the Sun, and the Earth's rotation about its axis, the tilt of Earth's axis, the alignment of Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. So if we draw the Sun over here, so the Earth is rolling around the Sun as you saw in the last lecture, and the Moon is rolling around the Earth. Now there is Earth tides happening on the Earth's surface. The water is rippling around in a certain time periods. We said 8 hours to 12 hours per day, depending on the season, depending on the temperature, depending on the resistance between the Earth, land, and the water above it, and depending on the speed that the Earth is rotating, and the alignment of Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. So you can study that by the effect of gravitation between the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. And even the shape of the coastline will affect. If you have a coastline that is directly a mountain, then of course the water tides will be different than when it is like the coastline is lower from the sea level than the other coastline, so the tide will be higher and so on. But the main cause being explained so far from the tides happening on Earth is from mainly the moon gravitation. Now let's take an example, dummy example on the relation between gravitation and Earth tides. The question is saying calculate the gravitational force exerted by the moon on 1 kilogram of water at A over here. Use G as 6.67 multiplied by 10 to the power minus 11 Newton meters squared over kilogram squared. We have here an actual information from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. So the Earth mass, as we know today, 5.9 by 10 to the power of 24. The moon's mass is 7.3 by 10 to the power of 22. The equatorial radius in meters, which is the radius from the center of the planet to the surface of that planet, is 6.3 multiplied by 10 to the power of 6 for Earth, 1.7 by 10 to the power of 6 for the moon. The mean separation distance from Earth, that is, how far is the moon from Earth, the actual number that we estimate so far is 3.8 by 10 to the power of 8. Now we have a given that the mass of water is 1 kilogram. Mass of Earth is 5.9 by 10 to the power of 24 kilograms. Mass of moon 7.3 by 10 to the power of 22 kilograms. The radius of Earth 6.3 by 10 to the power of 6 meters. Radius of moon 1.7 by 6 to the power by 10 to the power of 6 meters. Radius between, or the distance between Earth to the moon is 3.8 by 10 to the power of 8 meters. Find as a requirement gravitational force exerted by moon on water, Fg. Now what we do, as you know, draw a free body diagram for the water and show only the gravitational force due to the moon. So towards the moon, as a convention, is a plus sign. Away from the moon is a minus sign. We have the cup here, assuming the moon is somewhere here. So we have a gravitational force pulled the cup towards the moon. That's called Fg directional in this case. Now we need to find the separation distance between the water and the moon. So the distance between the water and the moon will be the radius between the Earth and the moon minus the radius of the Earth. This way we will find the radius between the cup of water to the moon. That would give you 3.7 by 10 to the power of 8 meters. Finding Fg exerted by moon on water using Newton's law of gravitation. Fg equals G by the mass of water by the mass of moon over the distance squared. If you compensate the number given to you in the givens, that would give you the gravitational force of 3.4 by 10 to the power of minus 5 newtons towards the moon's center.